Mm, wait. Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another movie review. Uh, Today we'll be talking about well, Hotel Transylvania, Hotel Transylvania 1 and the sequel. But this video, for the sake of time, we'll be talking about just the part 1, then part 2 in a whole nother video. And this movie, like, when this movie came out, it was still around a time when, like, usually Adam Sandler's movies were like very lackluster. And this is way before what's that Diamond movie that he did? I didn't watch it. People loved it. I think he got like an Academy Award for it a couple of years ago. I forgot what it was, but uh, this is like a whole decade, or at least less than a decade, movie. When this came out, it was like 2012, and this became like a new staple of like Halloween movies. And this is like actually a good Adam Sandler movie. And I know sometimes they come few and far in between, since like the I think like it was like a stint. It was like halfway through mid 2000s. His stuff's kind of like lackluster. This came out, it was good, and the sequel was good. And then for a while, just consistent kind of bad movies until like that Diamond Jewel movie he did a couple years ago, where it kind of like felt like a return to form, or at least shows that Adam Sandler kind of like evolved, where it feels like he was stagnant in like 90s era comedy in a way, like certain jokes that just doesn't land anymore. And it's like Adam Sandler is funny as hell. He is funny as hell. He's a great actor. I love Adam Sandler. It's just, if I'm being completely honest, it's just that you know it's been like a while for like his movies was just like not garbage, but it's just like there's certain things that we expect from Adam Sandler, and even if he's trying to surprise us with something new, uh, it usually it's just bad because he still falls on that trope, that his own personal trope. It's kind of like a caricature of himself. Stuff that we used to find funny, but it's just like we grew up out of that stuff. We found, some nuances of comedy at a certain point. Just like I said, it doesn't land anymore. Now, there's certain things that we still get a giggle out of that is tightly interwoven into the fabric of what is Adam Sandler. But by and large, it's just like some of the stuff that we like from Billy Madison days does not play today, as far as like 2010s up until this point. But Hotel Transylvania was like a nice change of pace. It was an animated movie, kind of like just based off like classic horror movie monsters in cartoon format, and it's like it's a fun movie, and it's like it created like a brand new type of my goth love, Mavis. Uh, uh, yeah, Adam Sandler stars as Count Dracula. Andy Samberg, who plays like a human named Jonathan. Selena Gomez as Mavis Dracula, who's like, if you look up Mavis Dracula and just Google it, you'll get a lot of interesting images. Uh, Fun fact: the role was initially was supposed to be given to Miley Cyrus, but at the time she was like having like issues between like because she was dating like no, it wasn't issues necessarily. Well, she was dating Liam Hemsworth at the time, and like the studio let her go because like I think on like a I don't know some kind of party I don't know if it was a party for him or just like a party in general where she bought where she got this cake made into a shape of a penis with like kind of frosting or whatever coming out at the end, and it's kind of like, and then she looks like she took a picture of like licking it, and like it was reason enough to let her go. But I think she was going through some other stuff at the time that caused her to just be like let go and like replaced by Selena Gomez. I honestly did not know that until like I rewatched this. Uh, Kevin James as Frankenstein, Steve Buscemi as the werewolf, CeeLo Green plays as like a fat mummy, but in the sequel he was later voiced by Keegan-Michael Key. Fran Dresser as Eunice, Frankenstein's wife. Molly Shannon as the Wanda, the werewolf. The wife of the werewolf. John Lovitz as Quasimodo. David Spade as the Invisible Man. Jim Wise and Lunel as the Shrunken Heads. Chris Parnell as Mr. Fly. Brian George as Suit of Armor. And it's fun, like information here. At the time, Adam Sandler's young daughter Sadie Saddler, who was like a very young girl at the time, voiced a very young Mavis, and his wife played Dracula's wife during like a flashbacks. So it was nice that he even brought in like his like family for a little bit into the film. So I thought that was pretty doggone cool. I mean, the animation is brilliant in this, but by I think I saw Hotel Transylvania 3, but I remember not liking it. It's been a long while, but then I just avoided the Hotel Transylvania films since then because it just became like a very, maybe at some point in the future, if you guys want, I can review 3, 4, I think there's 5 of them at this point. If y'all want, and depending on how many requests I get, I'll consider doing like the other Hotel Transylvania films and making reviews for those. But by and large, it's like the one thing that's kind of glaring that I saw from like certain clips and images is like they fell into that same trope of like those. It's like those kind of cartoons that it feels like it's nothing, no substance to them. It's like it's just beat by beat kind of cartoons that's running the mill. Where it's like in the first 2 Hotel Transylvania movies, just right out the gate, I just want to point out how like look at how like certain characters move. You can tell a lot about the way certain characters move that that you get before they even start talking half the time. Dracula moves in the first 2 movies, moves in a very particular way. He glides and he got super speed. He moves in a very distinct kind of way that's very unique for him. But by 3 into 5, he starts moving very zigzaggy, just like any other cartoon character around this time, or at least currently. I don't know about certain current cartoons, but it's like just fast movements just to distract your kids. And it's like that's my problem with certain cartoons around this time, and probably at some point around this time. It's like cartoons that I grew up with had like a particular aura about them. It's like because I guess it was because around like 80s, 90s, early 2000s, certain cartoons. Not that it wasn't crappy, but it's just like very few crappy cartoons compared to ones that's like not only they're supposed to be funny and that you can let your kids watch, there is like you know there's purpose behind it in a way, and it's like you learn something from these kind of characters, like like a perfect example. If you ever watched the cartoon show Ed, Ned and Eddie from Cartoon Network, those are a good example as far as like distinct movements that tells you a lot about these characters. Ed, leans back as he's running. It's kind of like dopey, look, a little bit almost like I won't say laziness, but it's just like it's just like very like laxed. While Double D runs like this, it's kind of like more balance, more purpose. Like very not methodical, but he's the bright one. You can tell he's the bright one the way like even his move is like more like trying to keep his balance and move in a certain distinct way, while Eddie moves with more zeal and he's out forward and he's like just like just chugging along, and he's moving like he's trying to grasp at something because he's the leader. He's out front. Even though he's the shortest, he's the fastest. And it's like those like are perfect examples of how like cartoons we watched at the time. Scooby Doo, they all run in very distinct manner, moving in a distinct manner. Nowadays, everybody's doing the exact same thing, all zigzaggy moves like blah, 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 blah. This is just fast movements, all the same thing. You can't tell them apart. That's and it's like it's small, but it tells a lot about what kind of cartoon you're watching. Even SpongeBob at first had like a different tone to it, but after a while, even before like the initial creator passed away a year or so ago, at a certain point, even though I think he wanted the show kind of end at a certain point, but Nickelodeon knew what kind of cash cow they had, so they just kept on going despite his wishes. The animation kind of changed up, and like they stopped making them like distinct in a way, and it became like the same old kind of cartoons that you can switch on any random cartoon channel and you get to see almost the exact same kind of like animation style, and that's why I kind of like find it galling and kind of irks me a bit, and I weep for the kids these days when it's like when I have children, I'm only gonna make sure. I mean, of course, they're gonna have their own little cartoons for their era, but I'm gonna make sure I'll show them my cartoons growing up, so they have an appreciation for like good cartoons, like even like Nick Jr., like good Blue's Clues, the original Steve Blue's Clues, maybe some of Joe, but like Arthur, older SpongeBob, Ed and Eddie, Powerpuff Girls, regular show even, Chowder, Bill and Mandy, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, things like that, like even like certain anime, like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Fairy Tail, Naruto, like show them some good stuff so they have some freaking appreciation. So whenever someone like kind of, I don't even want to call it crappy, like some people might not find it crappy, but when they see certain other animation styles, they can know the difference and they can choose whether or not they can stick with it or just like, nah, that's not for me. That's my take. But back to like Hotel Transylvania. uh, you know, Dracula has his little baby girl. Mom dies from like earlier, when the a little bit after the baby was born. This is around the era during when uh because he's the Crown Dracula. Around his time, uh humans like were scared of monsters and everything like that, and like they was pretty much trying to run them out of town. They ended up causing a fire. They ended up killing Dracula's wife, so only he and Mavis were the survivors. So because of this tragedy, he decided to build change his castle into like this massive hotel that is also a safe haven for monsters around the world to come visit, uh, to be safe from persecution from uh, the human world that he just has a complete prejudice against in a way. Uh, and he just want to keep his daughter safe, which I like that. It's like a nuance, not a nuanced thing. There's always like movies like that. It's like I'm trying to protect my daughter from like the outside world, but it's played very smart in this. It's like it's like usually the flip effect, but this is like it's almost like like X-Men. It's like in the same way with like Xavier with his well, in the past it used to be like his school, but now it's like an island in the current comic books. If you are keeping up with current X-Men, that's the new status quo. After the past few years, but they kind of do something similar to this with Dracula and all these various monsters that from like books and movies and stuff like that. And you meet over the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, werewolf, and Mummy, which is all Dracula's best friends. So they're all there to celebrate Mavis's 118th birthday, and she's like, it's one of those kind of like stories when the kid want to go out there and see the world, and like he's still like harboring prejudice and fear of like humans. He hasn't gone out to see how they kind of evolved over the years. It's like you would think someone like Dracula would like just from the shadows pop in and out every couple of centuries just to see, like, because he should understand the concept of time and like evolution, because he's immortal. He should be able to like every once in a while, like well, maybe just out of the prejudice, he just refused to even like indulge in just popping in and out just to see what's transpiring with the humans. But maybe because he doesn't know, because until he actually shows a monster to them and see how they react, but then again, it was just could have easily spring up into a same old situation. So I guess I understand he doesn't want to like run the risk of causing that same situation all over again, which kind of ruins the whole point of him making this safe haven. So Mavis wants to go out, see the world. She's been secluded in this hotel for all her 118th life. So she goes out to the village nearby just to, Dracula's convincing her, like, okay, just wet your feet a little bit. Don't go crazy. Go out to the village nearby, see some humans and like get, just get your feet wet a little bit. She go out there and like, she's like, they are freaking out on her and everything like that. So she runs back home. Turns out to be like just zombies in disguise. But then to Dracula's like horror, you get to see Johnny coming in. Is it was a joke in the sequel where he calls Johnny a hippie, and like Johnny just like hilariously corrects him, like, I'm not a hippie, I'm a slacker. Like, I'm a slacker. So uh, yeah, he has that, because uh, Andy Samberg is like really good at doing that they kind of like bro-ish tone in his voice. It's like, hey, it's a Frankie homie. It's a Frankie homie. I was like, I'm not doing it very well. But like, you know, uh, just the like, sup, bro? That tone, and like, don't be a grandpa. And he's like, get fixated on his backpack. He's like, like, I love my backpack. Will you hold my backpack? No. Uh, but it's just like, if you ever seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you get to see like, I think pretty sure like the first or second season was like a episode where you get to see a special, Adam Sandler guest star in Andy Samberg's show Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you get to see those two interact, and it's just funny. Those two are just funny together. Of course, they've been. I think this is the first movie they was in together. I think the next time it was another movie, like what was it, like a man, like a, I think it's That's My Boy, something like that. What was the, Andy Samberg did with Adam Sandler. I think this happened after Hotel Transylvania. The first one. No, That's My Boy was first. That was that first time uh together in a movie, I believe. Pretty sure. Uh yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, That's My Boy looks like to be like the first time those two, started a movie together. Next time was like Hotel Transylvania, then Grown Ups 2, then the other Hotel Transylvania movies, and then of course Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So yeah, it's a good handful now. They starting movies together. So like their comedic timing, the way they bounce off each other is like just exquisite. It's so much fun. Uh, so while Johnny at first doesn't believe like anything of this is real, he just like follow, like the zombies who's lighting torches along the ways, and he thinking this is a bunch of people going to another, because he's been vacationing or at least like backpacking, you know, uh, across the well, it's like, what do you call those things, like exchange student kind of situations, but not student. He's just like I don't know. It's like taking like a gap year, those kind of things. Like he's just traveling. It's one of those like white boys that get to travel everywhere on like mom and dad's dime kind of situation. Uh, so he's backpacking in Europe, and he's usually going to hostels, and he's so oblivious. Even though like one shop he visited, you see like two people like just freaking out, telling them about like these horror stories about this like castle that's like that's nearby. And so he just just listening, and he's just thinking like, oh, is this like just like a fun thing, is but Dracula's freaking out, thinking like his phone might steal his soul, and it's like, and Johnny thinks he's like over, like one of those like very method actors, like like, dude, like, I love your Dracula voice, like, never again. It's like he just, and he like, there's a running joke that carries on for, I don't know if they do in the third into the fifth movie, but it's just like when he mocks Dracula, like, oh, Dracula, blah blah blah. I never say blah blah blah. I don't know where that started. And it's always funny to me. Like, it's still funny to me, the fact that they keep bringing that up. And it's like because like Bella Lugosi, since him, it's always been like because he did it and it became like a mainstay for such a long time. Now it's kind of like permeated, and they turn it into like a joke because you know you wouldn't think Dracula would actually say blah blah blah. It was like a corny little joke. I don't know, but I guess it's kind of like emphasizes the like fangs coming out, and he's about to feast on like the blood or something like blah. So blah 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 kind of situation. So Johnny eventually, after trying to, after he meets this like skeleton, and he's thinking like, oh, how do you make this happen, man? It looks so real. And he puts his hand through the rib cages and realizes that's an actual living skeleton. Like, oh my god, you're real. And he's like, it was like a female skeleton, and the husband coming like, yeah, it's real. And I'm really gonna, deck you, get out of here. It's like, and then he's like bumping into all these creatures, and he's like freaking out until like he bumps into Mavis, and they had like this little zing moment, the love at first sight kind of stuff, and Dracula intercepts. He takes Johnny to one of his quarters, in like the upper levels of the castle, and he's trying to sneak Johnny out. But of course he has him disguised like in a costume to try to make him look like a Frankenstein monster, so he won't be noticed. Oh, by the way, before I forget, earlier in the movie, like you meet up with like earlier in the movie when like Dracula's saying hi to everybody, he's coming into like the welcome everybody to the Hotel Transylvania. There was this female mummy that was walking by that he's passing out pamphlets, to her and a bunch of other monsters. But when you meet the mummy, I always thought like those two were together. And it's like, it would make sense to have those two together. There's only two mummies out of the entire, possibly the franchise. And it's like, but, it might appear to be like they're just, they're not, not to say like just because they're two mummies doesn't mean they know each other or together. But it's just, it wouldn't make sense because, the only two werewolves and they're together. Well, maybe there's three. Well, because the two werewolves and their pups. But, and you got like Frankenstein's monster with his wife, Eunice, the bride of Frankenstein. It wouldn't make it would make sense to have like, because she has this whole pharaoh thing, adornment on her head. It would make sense to have those two like together. After like a prank by the Frankenstein, and it's like thinking like, he farted in the middle of his lobby, and like he's face to face with like the female mummy, and she's just like rolling her eyes and just backing off, and he's like, I swear I'm not like that. And it's like, why didn't you have that scene if like they're not together? It's something that they kind of always like bug me. It's like, if they're not gonna be together, why you even have like a female mummy? It's a purpose to having her there, obviously. But if you're not gonna do nothing with it, why put it in there? It makes no sense. But anyway, he's trying to sneak Johnny out, covertly, so that way he won't raise suspicions, because he's thinking once everybody figures out that he has a human in the hotel, they're gonna freak out, and Maeve's gonna think, he's gonna, realize he lied to her, so he can't like, and he's afraid he's gonna leave, so he's trying to keep that all under wraps. So while like going through all these different passageways, which is supposed to be like a escape route in case like humans attack the castle. He's walking on these corridors, which he's vaguely remembering to how to navigate. And Johnny, in the meantime, also asking him all these annoying vampire questions, like, like, is it true? Is it true you don't like garlic? Yeah, I'm allergic. Is it true that you'll die from a stake through the heart? Yeah, but who wouldn't that kill? And it's like you just answer these series of just like annoying vampire questions, or at least monster questions in general. Like, if I put my hand through the Visible Man's mouth, would it disappear? Which, it probably is. Well, not probably, definitely is true, because you see the Invisible Man drink wine, possibly in this first one, but definitely in the second one, and it disappears. So it would stand to reason that if you stick your hand in the Visible Man's mouth, your hand will just disappear. Uh, uh, so they end up running back into Drax's friends, who are attacking the zombified version of Bach, Beethoven, and uh, I forgot the other classical musician. And it's like a funny little moment when it's like Dracula asks Beethoven, zombie Beethoven, did you get a chance to practice? And his response, classic, is so funny, like that is like a legit funny thing to put in there. It's like, you would not think or come like getting a response from that. That was clever. Talking about like clever stuff. Like, some of this has to be coming from Adam Sandler, but I'm not sure he was fully behind all of the comedy in here. But it has to be like an ensemble piece. It cannot be all him, even though he is funny. But it seems like there's other people in the kitchen here making this meal. They, his friends wanted to, like, do this jam session they used to do when they was younger. Of course, Drac refuses, but he's convincing the people, like, they're like, Johnny's like a party planner for and like a friend for Mavis that's closer to her age, kind of situation. So he's just trying to like cover stress as much as possible. So, as the party planner, he, like, oh, let me listen to you jam. And it's like, of course, it's a little more like slow jam type of stuff. But then, like, you hear like, and pretty sure Andy Samberg, actually can like rap and sing. As we should know from the classic SNL Christmas skit, "My Dick in a Box." That still is probably one of the highlights of SNL back in the day. So Andy Samberg can actually like jam. So it was a little more upbeat, but Dracula's not having it. He's a very control freak, because he wants to control every aspect of this party. And that kind of like extends into like his friends, and it extends into his daughter, obviously, because like, I guess what happened with his wife was so out of his control that he's, like, fine, I have to make sure that everything goes my way. It's very Batman of him, ironically, because, I have to do things my way, in this particular way, because that's the only way I can make sure everybody that I care about is safe. If anything deters from that, it's utter bedlam. So you can't have that. And that's the whole point of like his lessons, guy. He's got to learn to let he can't control. He got to learn that he can't control everything, and like let things like play out naturally, because not everything's gonna work out, but sometimes it could be like a benefit than a detriment. But he's like, like cutting like the jam session short, and it's like, then he's starting like going through these boring bingo tournaments and his boring charades. And it's a funny moment when you get the Invisible Man. Why would you have the Invisible Man do charades? And it's like a funny moment when like, the sequel is like he's like doing aerobics, and it's like, or at least running an aerobics class. You put him in the positions where you need to see him. And I asked the joke, and it's so doggone funny. It's like, and people trying to guess what he's trying to do, like, miming, and it's like, nothing, air, glasses. So, yeah, it was pretty dang good. But he's still trying to like convince like Johnny to like fake injury so he can finally leave so he can get back to like running his hotel. But in the meantime, while like Mavis and him are just connecting, so finally like Dracula takes him out like on the outskirts of the castle and tell him like hey, you gotta butt out here, because otherwise I will kill you if you don't get the hell out of here now. So as he's trying to walk off, and then Mavis shows up and said like, hey, let me show you something. And then like they get to watch like a sunrise. Of course, she never watched a sunrise before, being a vampire that will kill her. So he brings her into like the shadows of like the chimney, so she can like watch safely from afar the sunrise. But he ended up falling through the roof into the sauna room where like Dracula is hanging with his buddies, and like just infuriates him so more, and thinking like he just won't go away. So he decides, okay, fine, you want to be a party planner, like that's what you're gonna be doing. Help me set the tables. Then they started having fun by like, because they're kind of ghosts, because like those old stereotypical kind of like cartoonish ghosts with like sheets with eyes kind of thing, and they're like just tablecloths on these tables that float, and as you call out like a letter number, kind of like chess, table blank to like B3, and it's like they rise up and float, and they start riding them, and like just like having like a hilarious time getting along, until like Quasimodo, who keeps, because he has Quasimodo who's a chef who has a mouse named Esmeralda who keeps smelling human, and because of the disguise they're not 100% sure, until like at this point it's like it has to be Johnny. So he kidnaps him to try to cook him, until like Dracula saves him. And then Dracula shows Johnny like the painting of his late wife, and Johnny tells him like this local legend that he heard about, like about how like this like these count who met up with this woman, they it was love at first sight kind of thing, and tragedy happened that ended both of their lives. But Dracula has to correct him, like the legend are wrong, only one of them died. And like he showed them the whole painting of all three, with Mavis being a baby, and like Count told him that she died because of your kind. Your kind took the love of my life away, because they didn't like us because we were different from them. And when she states earlier in like one of Johnny's questions, like is it true that you drink blood? Like yeah, but like I don't drink human blood. Human blood is so fatty, and you don't know where it's been, so I use a blood substitute. You can't tell the difference. So a very cool way, because like it's certain shows or movies with vampires who drink like good vampires are supposed to be like the hero to drink like synthetic blood or fake blood, or in Blaze's case, kind of like a you know a formula in order to satisfy that natural craving without having to kill a human being to satiate that. So, um, Johnny feeling like bad, saying that he's stating like, well, like human beings are not like that now. The world's changed, and Dracula asks him like, so you're saying if we come out right now, do you think the won't be people like afraid of us? Are you talking about like all of them won't be afraid of him? And like Johnny, can he obviously knows that probably won't be the case, because it's gonna be, because people fear what they don't. It's just to borrow the X-Men thing again. People fear what they don't understand, and yeah, by the end of this, you'll see like there's like a large amount of people like because Dracula and Frankenstein and Mummy and all of them like are become like kind of pop icons now in this day and age, because like how like they grew from being like dangerous creatures of old to something that we celebrate like once a year, as far as like being like a staple of horror. They're like the foundation of horror if you think about it. And like we wouldn't get like Chucky, Freddy, Jason, or like any kind of monster movie at all if it wasn't for Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, Werewolf, The Invisible Man. They were the foundation. They were like the founding fathers of horror. And I think sometimes we forget that, honestly. And that's why I'm like so psyched for like the Dark Universe movie. Now they back on track with the Invisible Man and the Wolfman and moving forward, because we forget like they're the originators of the shared universe. They the ones that was the first ones to do it, and they were the first horror films that, well, I could be wrong, but like for all intents and purposes, they were the first horror film that we knew of that was brought to screen. And like it just and they like horror evolved since then, but we wouldn't get like Annabelle if it wasn't like the classic ghost stories. We wouldn't get like any of the slasher films if it wasn't for vampires or Dracula. Because it's like the Creatures of the Black Lagoon, which you see like a couple of times in this film. It's like you wouldn't get certain sea monsters, and it's just like you gotta make sure they get their flowers, because they were the originators. So Johnny, feeling bad, decided to leave seriously this time, just out of respect for Dracula and the people he befriended here. But Dracula stops and saying like, no, like I don't want to ruin Mavis's party. Stay in, once the party ends, you can just like slip out then. So they're partying, and Johnny and Mavis end up sharing a kiss, which infuriates Dracula. Like look, I confide in you, and you do me like this. And then it's like, Quasimodo spilled the beans, after he was eventually unfrozen, and tells everybody that's a human, and then like his disguise kind of like, kind of got, taken off. So everybody's, angry at Dracula. Mavis is like, freaked. Well, not freaked about, because he's still like into Johnny despite him being human, but out of respect for Dracula and what he went through, he pretends, he does the old Yeller trick, like, I don't really care for you. It's like, maybe you just stay with your father. And he, breaks her heart, and then he leaves. And like, this kind of makes Dracula feel sad, because like I said, he controlling too much, and it ended up became like a bad thing, because you in a way kind of like, you don't want to, he comes to realize he doesn't want to make Mavis live here for the rest of her life alone and not knowing the world or finding her own love, uh, and that he realizes that he found love with this human boy. So he and his friends, after he made up with them, goes and find Johnny. Which when you see like the nearby village who's celebrating Halloween, and they like see like uh you know Dracula and his friends, and it's like they all like cheer and like want to take pictures with them. And it's like because they're like icons, they're celebrities, like the oldest celebrities, and like Frankenstein convinced them like Dracula's trying to get to a friend. Can y'all help? And so like all the people dressed as like vampires or Draculas, they hold up their capes to like block out the sun for Dracula, so he can just like bolt to the airline. And like, well, the fact that they had trouble at first trying to figure out where to find Johnny after he left, and they use Winnie, one of Dracula's pups. I mean, not Dracula. The werewolf's pups, and she like, oh, he took the airline back to America, seat number, blah blah blah, and he's wearing this type of like too much cologne, blah blah blah, and it's like she shows up in the sequel, and this is something that stood out to me that I didn't think of before until like I decided to do these reviews. Have you noticed? I don't know anybody noticed this before, but Winnie is obviously like by pup standards, sees a toddler. By the sequel, when Mavis and Johnny, spoiler alert, have a kid of their own, by the time he grows up to be a toddler, Winnie's still around like the same age. She should be a lot older, at least by 5 years older than him by the sequel when he's a toddler. Why is she the same age? And they had this little thing like they obviously like Winnie and everything like that, and it's like that part did not make any sense to me. I just want to mention this now in case I don't bring it up in my review for Hotel Transylvania 2, because that really bugged me. That's probably one thing that's like a glaring a mistake by like the writers, because like Winnie should be a little bit older, considering she's here now and a toddler. She should be a few years older by the sequel, especially when the kid is like the toddler age. Anyway, he is in bat form now, and like despite the sun, he's like already like slowly burning. And somehow a bat managed to get, even though he's Dracula, he still manages to get up onto the plane that's already taken off, and he goes to the front of the plane and hypnotizes the pilot so he can speak through him to Johnny. But I know it's a cartoon, but knowing all the like certain vampire films I've seen over the years, immediately when they get into the sun, it takes like almost seconds to like a full minute before they burn up to death. He's sitting on this plane for a good 3 to 4 minutes while he's giving this apology to Johnny and convince him to come back. And another thing, he's like hypnotizing the pilot to turn back around to Transylvania. So that's probably another few minutes. So he should be long since dusted at this point. It's like a full sunrise and climbing higher into the sky, closer to the sun. Not close to the sun, but like relatively, he's in the sky. So it's by the heat standards is should be a whole lot hotter. So he should be like dust. Like I said, I know it's a cartoon, but it's just if you're insinuating him burning up, it's like that part is another thing that was weird to me. but it's like a funny line he made when it's like, you know, uh, when he's sympathizing the pilot to say, you know, like we're making our turn back to Transylvania. Then all the passengers start groaning, and he's like, "Oh, shut up! I'm burning up out here." It was so funny. That cracked me up every time. So they the movie ends when like just them enjoying like a party, and Mavis and Johnny get together. It's like a fun movie. It's like I return to it like almost every Halloween. It's one of those Halloween movies that I like coming back to every year. Uh, so yeah, it's definitely like a good watch, a fun watch, great to watch with your kids if you have kids, nephews, grandchildren. It is a great film. One the I put it up there with one like Adam Sandler's best movies, Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2. Uh, watch the sequels after that at your own peril. Uh, but yeah, it's a good watch. So let me know what you guys think of Hotel Transylvania. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Follow me on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/Talkative Carl. I'll see you guys later for Hotel Transylvania 2. And yeah, be safe out there.